All right, so get ready. We're diving deep into something that's got everyone talking, at least in India, a 90-hour work week.
Yeah.
It all started with this video. Mr. S.N. Subramanian, he's the chairman of Larsen and Toubro. He's basically saying people need to put in some serious
A
overtime.
lot of overtime.
We're talking 90 hours a week. And get this, Sundays included.
It's amazing how fast this whole thing became a huge discussion, right? Like all over India, everyone's talking about work culture and what it really takes to succeed. Like, what does it even mean to be successful in India today? It's not just about how many hours you work. It's way deeper than that.
You're right. It
Oh.
really is. And we've got a ton of stuff to go through today. We've got news articles, social media posts, reactions from some pretty big names in business, and even, get this, some stuff from Bollywood.
Wow, Bollywood.
Yeah. So what we're trying to do today is figure out all the different sides of this whole argument. We're going to look at what it could do to people's health, and we'll explore the whole work-life balance thing in India.
Okay, sounds good. So maybe we can start with, like, what is this guy, Mr. Subramanian? What's his argument? He seems to be making a connection with China, like saying their economy is doing so well because they work similar crazy hours.
Yeah, he even said he wished he could make employees work on Sundays just like him.
Wow.
And then to make things even more interesting, he made this comment about how long can people stare at their wives. Let's just say that didn't exactly go over well.
Definitely touched a nerve there. Like, instantly, people were all over social media saying this is just going to create a toxic work culture, putting what the company wants way ahead of how employees are actually doing their well-being. It's almost like he totally forgot that people need personal time, family time.
It's interesting, though, because L&T, his company, they actually came out with a statement defending him. They basically said, to get extraordinary results, you need extraordinary effort. So it's not like they're backing down from what he said.
Interesting. And, it's not even the first time someone's brought up this crazy work hours idea in India. Remember a while back, Narayana Murthy, one of the founders of Infosys, that big tech company, he said people should be working 70 hours a week, all to boost India's productivity.
Oh, yeah. Murthy, the tech giant, I
Right.
kind of remember that causing a stir, too. So this whole pushing people to work insane hours, it's not a brand new idea.
Nope, not at all. And just like with Mr. Subramanian, Murthy gave a lot of criticism too. People were basically saying, hello, burnout, don't you need rest to actually be productive in the long run?
Right, right. But it wasn't just like regular folks on social media this time. Some pretty big names in the business world, they totally disagreed with this 90-hour work week thing.
Totally. Rajiv Bajaj, he's the managing director at Bajaj Auto, he kind of slammed the idea. He basically said, it's not about how many hours you're at your desk, it's about the quality of the work you do.
Work smarter, not harder.
Exactly. And then there's Harsh Goenka, chairman of RPG Enterprises. He went on, what's it called now? X?
Oh, yeah. Formerly Twitter.
He totally roasted this whole idea. Even joked about, like, changing Sunday to Sun duty and how day off is this mythical thing that doesn't exist anymore.
Oh, that was hilarious.
His post went viral, right? Because it just shows how ridiculous it is to think that your whole life should be about the office. Like, Goenka, a lot of people were like, work-life balance is crucial. It's not just some luxury.
And then you had Deepika Padukone from Bollywood. She even jumped into the conversation. She was pretty shocked by what the L&T chairman said and really emphasized how important mental health is. This clearly isn't just about economics. This is about people's actual lives.
Yeah, for sure. It's like this whole thing is just a small piece of a much bigger conversation happening everywhere. How do you balance growing the economy with keeping people healthy and, not totally burnt out? It's a super complicated question, and there's no easy answer.
You're right, it's complicated. And speaking of not being burnt out, there are some real serious concerns about what this kind of intense work schedule would do to people's health.
Oh, absolutely. We've actually got an article here with a doctor, Dr. Mukesha Goel, a cardiothoracic surgeon. He talks about how when you're constantly stressed from working long hours, it can lead to all sorts of health problems. We're talking high blood pressure, heart disease, even strokes.
It's like your body is constantly on high alert, right?
Yeah.
Like it's always in fight or flight mode.
Yeah.
And that just wears you down over time.
Exactly. You can't live like that forever. And this isn't just like one doctor's opinion. There's this WHO study we've got, and it says that if you work 55 hours or more a week, your chances of having a stroke go up by 35%. And the risk of dying from heart disease goes up by 17%.
Those are some scary numbers.
They are. And it really hit home for a lot of people when that 26-year-old EY employee passed away in 2024. A lot of people blamed it on the pressure he was under at work.
That was a really sad story. It really makes you think about the price we pay for this constant push for economic growth.
It does. It makes you wonder, is it really worth it?
Yeah. So basically, working more hours doesn't automatically mean you get more done. At some point, it's actually the opposite.
That's right. And there's a bunch of research that backs that up. There's this study from Stanford that found that after 50 hours a week, productivity really takes a nosedive. And after 55 hours, you're barely getting anything extra done. This whole idea that we need to work ourselves to death to boost the economy, it might not be the right way to think about it.
It's like work smarter, not harder.
Yeah,
Find ways to be more efficient with the time you do have.
exactly. And to figure out how to do that, we need to step back and look at the bigger picture of work-life balance in India.
Okay, so now things are getting really interesting. Everything we've seen paints a picture of a country that's kind of struggling with this deeply ingrained culture of working too much.
The numbers really jump out at you. Like, a big percentage of Indian employees are working way more than 49 hours a week, which is a lot higher than the average around the world. And although India does have laws about how many hours you can work, they don't really enforce them very well.
So it's like the rules are there, but nobody's really following them.
It's more complicated than that. There are cultural things, societal expectations that all play into it. It's like this unspoken pressure to always be available for work and to show how dedicated you are by staying late.
It's like a badge of honor. Look how much I'm working. But that's not something you can keep up forever.
Nope. And this brings us back to Narayana Murthy and his whole 70-hour work week thing. He said it was to help India's economy, but he got the same kind of pushback as what's happening now. People were saying, hey, rest is important. You can't keep pushing people without giving them time to recharge.
It's like the same debate keeps coming back. But we still haven't figured out how to balance the importance of work with the importance of, just being a human.
That's a tough one.
Yeah.
And it really makes you think, if some people are perfectly fine with letting work take over their whole lives, shouldn't they at least respect those who want to keep those things separate?
Right. Like, if you love working all the time and it makes you happy, that's fine. But you can't force everyone else to feel the same way.
Exactly. Especially when you think about how things work in a lot of companies, there's this power dynamic where people lower down might feel like they have to say yes to extra work even if they don't want to, just to keep their boss happy.
It's a tricky situation for sure. It makes you wonder how much of a choice people really have in these work cultures where working all the time is seen as a good thing.
And that leads us to the government's role in all of this. What are they doing to protect workers and make sure there are some basic rules about working conditions?
Yeah, good point.
And we actually found something interesting in the sources. There's this member of parliament, Raja Ram Singh. He wrote to the labor minister, basically saying they need to start punishing companies that are breaking the laws about working hours. He wants to make sure that those rules are actually being enforced so employees aren't taken advantage of.
So someone's actually trying to give those labor laws some teeth.
It seems like it. It shows that at least some people in the government realize they need to step in and stop companies from exploiting their workers. It's a good first step, but we'll have to wait and see if it actually leads to any real change. It's like we're trying to answer this big question: how do we even define progress? Is it all about the economy growing, or is it also about building a society where people can actually, thrive both at work and in their personal lives?
That's a really great point, and it actually connects perfectly to some of the questions that you guys sent in. First up, if some people are totally cool with blurring the lines between work and life, shouldn't they at least respect those who want to keep them separate?
It's a tricky one for sure. On the one hand, you have this idea that people should be able to choose, right? Like how they live their lives and their careers, that's up to them.
Right, like if someone genuinely loves working long hours and it makes them happy, who are we to tell them they're wrong?
Exactly. But then you also have to think about, like, what happens when there's a power imbalance?
Yeah, like it's easy to say, I'm fine working 90 hours when you're the boss. But what about the people who work for you? They might feel like they have to do the same, even if they don't want to, just to keep their job.
That's the danger, right? Someone in a junior position, they might feel like they can't say no to all those extra hours, even if it means giving up their personal life, just to stay on their boss's good side.
It's a tough spot to be in, no doubt. Makes you wonder how much of a choice people really have in those kinds of work cultures where everyone's always expected to be working.
And speaking of, like, the potential downsides of all that pressure at work, your next question brings up something really sensitive: the death of that young EY employee. You asked if it was all because of overwork.
That story really got to me, to be
Okay.
honest. It just made this whole discussion feel way more real, not just some abstract debate.
Yeah, I get that. It's impossible to say for sure if that was the only cause. Mental health is really complicated. There's usually a lot of different things going on.
Right, it's never just one thing.
But it definitely raises some big questions, right? About what happens when you put too much pressure on people, how it affects their mental and physical health. It's a reminder that pushing people too far can have terrible consequences.
It's like we're so focused on growing the economy and being productive that we forget that there are actual people involved. Their lives, their families, their well-being, those things matter too.
100%. And this brings us to your last question, which is a bit of a tough one. You asked if corporations actually care about growing India's GDP or if they're really just looking out for themselves.
Okay, I admit I've been thinking about this a lot lately. Are these companies actually trying to do what's best for the country, or are they just trying to make as much money as possible?
That's a question that could take a whole other deep dive to unpack. Look, businesses, they exist to make money. That's just how it
Right,
works.
they're not charities.
Exactly. But the companies that really succeed, the ones that last, they get that to be successful in the long run. You have to take care of your employees and the communities you're in. It's all connected.
So it's not like it has to be one or the other. You
Uh,
can be profitable A&D ethical at the same time.
Exactly. The smartest companies, the ones that are leading the way, they see that connection. They know that when their employees are happy and healthy and the community is doing well, the business does better too. It's not about exploiting people, it's about empowering them.
So it's like a win-win, right? When employees feel valued and supported, they're going to be more engaged, more productive, and more likely to stay with the company. And that's good for everyone.
Exactly. It's like creating this positive cycle where everybody benefits.
Okay, wow, we've covered a lot of really challenging stuff here. My brain is already feeling a little fried. But I have to ask, what's the biggest thing you take away from this whole 90-hour work week debate?
I think what really stood out to me was how powerful it can be when people speak up and challenge the way things are. We saw business leaders, famous people, everyday folks, even a politician, all saying they disagree with this idea. It's like everyone's pushing back against this pressure to work ourselves to exhaustion.
It's actually pretty inspiring. It shows that we're not just robots. We have voices, and we can use them to change the way we work, to build something better, something more humane, something that actually works for us.
It reminds us that things don't have to stay the same. We can question things, we can push back, we can demand better.
So even though it's a heavy topic, there's kind of a hopeful feeling to all of this, right? Like we're not powerless.
Not at all. We have way more power than we think. And the more we use our voices, the more we challenge these old ideas about work, the closer we get to building a world where work and life can actually fit together.
Now that's something worth fighting for. It's like this whole thing has made us really stop and think, what are we really working towards? And is it even worth it if we have to sacrifice everything else?
Yeah, it's definitely a wake-up call. We can't just keep doing things the way they've always been done and assume that working more automatically means progress. We got to be smarter about the kind of society we're building. One that values a strong economy, sure, but also one where people can actually be happy and healthy.
It's about finding that balance, right?
Yeah.
Where people can have meaningful work without having to give up their health, their relationships, or even just time for themselves.
Yeah.
It's tough, but it feels like we have to figure it out.
It is essential. And the good news is, like we've seen in this deep dive, there are people out there trying to make things better. We've got business leaders talking about work-life balance, politicians trying to make those worker protection laws actually mean something. It feels like more and more people are saying, okay, enough is enough.
Yeah, like a collective, we deserve better kind of moment.
Exactly. And that collective voice, it's powerful. It can actually change the future of work and create a way of life that's more humane and sustainable.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, what's the one thing you really hope our listeners take away from all of this?
I want them to know that their voice matters. Like,
Ah,
they actually have the power to challenge the way things are, to demand something better, and to help create a world where work and life can actually work together, in harmony.
it's not about waiting for someone else to fix it. It starts with each of us, knowing our own worth, setting boundaries, and speaking up for the kind of work culture we actually want to be a part of.
Absolutely. And there's no magic formula, no one-size-fits-all answer. The key is to be mindful, to know your own needs and limits, and to make choices that feel right for you, that align with your values.
So to everyone listening out there, Keep thinking about these things. What's your relationship with work like? What really matters to you? What kind of balance do you want to have in your own life?
Because in the end, it all starts with each of us.
Yeah,
Figuring out a better way to work, a better way to live.
I love that. That's a great note to end on. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time, stay curious.